All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 11th meeting of the CB2 Land Use Committee. My name is Eugene Yu. I'm the chair of the Land Use Committee. We'll go around and introduce members of the committee, but first, actually, I'd like to welcome our newest member, Arturo. So if you could go first.
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? Brand new appointee to the Land Use Committee. I'm really excited and grateful for this opportunity. Looking to all of you for your wisdom and knowledge and learn as much as I can, and do my best to represent the voice of CB2. So yeah, really excited to be here.
Right. Thank you. Welcome. All right.
Susan Berg, board member. Anita Brand, board member. Katie Gordon, our vice chair. Frederica Siegel, member. Donna Raftery, board and committee member.
Stella Fitzgerald, board and committee member.
And then online.
Yeah, hi, this
Board member?
yeah,
Public member.
Bo Riccobono, board member.
Hey, John Paul.
Hey.
Okay. Is there anyone else on the
Sean.
Yeah,
joining late?
anybody acknowledge seeing me? I can see all you guys. It's Bo.
Yes, we can see you, Bo.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a problem with the link. I had to go to the website to get the link. So I think a group
meeting?
What?
For the meeting or the Google Drive?
No, there was for this meeting, there was a problem with the link. And I know
Oh.
Gruber was trying to get on and I don't know who else, but I went to the website. Nobody sent the link this month. Normally we get it, a couple of times, but we didn't get it at all. But I got on by going to the website. So I think Gruber, I don't know who else.
Okay.
Well, you're clever. You
All right.
find us.
He hasn't communicated with us, that he's not, that he can't get on.
Yeah, I don't, Gruber, actually David Gruber just said he
Oh.
can't.
There you
So
go.
where did you say the link for the?
On
Just
the
register, you just
Just go to the
register on the site.
calendar?
Everybody's talking. If you just go to the website, the way you would to sign in if you're a member of the public and just use the link that's provided on the CB2 website.
Okay, let me just get David Gruber. He's saying he can't get on. Let me see if can we see if there's anyone on the attendee list? Let's see if any of our members are on the attendee list. Okay, so David Gruber said he's having problems logging in. I
Just
think
go to
that's
the
only-
website and register. That's what I did because we didn't get an email.
There is no
Usually we get an
automated link.
email. So if you
Okay.
just go to the website and register, that's what I did walking over.
Okay,
These, Maurice.
all right, so
My
we'll give.
stop on the way down. I have to find a
emailed
place.
David, so he should be able to come on soon.
And Carter's printing.
Carter is coming back. Carter is printing. Oh, there's David.
Oh.
Hi, David.
Is the lawyer gonna be on?
They should be. So we should have the attendees for One Thing Christopher. I don't see their name. If you're here for 110 Christopher, could you please raise your hand? All right, I'm going to promote you to panelists. Blair and Greg, so if you are here for 110 Christopher, are you representing the applicant? Or are you here from the general public? for 110?
I'm here as a tenant of 110 Christopher.
Okay, all right, and then Greg, your name?
Yes, same here.
Same, okay, all right. So if you could stay on mute, we're going to see if we can get the applicant online as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody had a later date.
gonna, tell us what changed.
Yes, well, I'd like to see if they're here.
Huh?
We'd like to see if the applicant is here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you, you can't,
I think,
did anyone send him the link or tell him when we were meeting?
There's some communication with him. Who's that 202 person?
well, no, actually, they confirmed that they were going to be at this meeting like several weeks ago. All right, Greg, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I wanted to point out that we didn't know about this meeting until sometime this afternoon. There was no notices anywhere. I was out at 9 o'clock this morning. There was nothing. I have neighbors that were in and out of the lobby at 10. And then somewhere around 4 o'clock, there was a posting for this meeting today.
Yeah, I agree.
No one knew about.
Okay, there should have been flyers in the building for 110
Well,
Christopher.
Mark said he had to do it himself.
Yeah,
The applicant,
but the applicant did
It
not.
was- There was too much back and forth. So Mark sent an email about that today.
I think if you want to be heard, you have to speak up a little.
When they bring the thing. Greg, we heard this afternoon that the flyers had gone up, but we weren't really sure when. So thank you for pointing that out. It was not our usual, it was not the usual posting situation. And who's the, may I have the name of the other woman from your building who's speaking? I don't see her, I can't see her name.
I'm Blair Jaffer.
Thank you.
No problem. And I will, I agree with Greg. There was unfortunately no notice of this meeting. I only got notified by another neighbor because the flyers were not up until I came home from work.
Okay.
Which was just an hour ago.
Is this the same lawyer that represented them prior?
Yes, yes, it is.
So he kind of knew what we expected.
Yes, I mean, he's been here before. We communicated with him to make sure that this date could meet, because he had to change the date for his BSA application.
Right.
I'm gonna
So
call
he had to
this-
push his date back.
Up on the cell.
You have a cell?
Yeah, it's on
Okay, he
the,
should be here.
I know.
No, because we communicated with the lawyer because they had to push back their BSA date
That's
in
right.
order to accommodate our schedule this month, because we're hearing them today. The full board is until next Thursday. So they confirmed in August that they would be here.
Yes, it's been a lot of back and forth. This is
Yeah.
not a mystery to them.
No,
But
but I mean, if
but the
he,
meeting
if it's the same,
itself-
if it's the same representation, I think that they should have understood the
The flyer.
responsibility to paper the building.
Hello, is this Carl Sulfaro? Okay, well, this is Katie Bordnaro calling from the community board meeting about 110 Christopher Street. Are you trying to get in? Do you have the link? We were expecting you. Yes, today. Today is the 11th. He could reach by phone.
reach your phone?
Where's, do you have an email address that we could?
Yeah, can you tell me his email and I'll,
Okay, just tell me your email, please. Right? SULFARO, and then what happens?
Oh, it's sulfarolaw@aol.com. Is that him?
Oh, I see. Okay, great. Okay. We'll send you a link in a minute. Please be, looking up. Carter,
Carter, it's Sulfaro Law. So SULFARO. Law
Safaro Law.
at AOL.com.
First name is Carl.
His first name's Carl, yeah, CARO. Today is the 11th.
Say what they used to.
Did you mean next month?
Who knows?
Today is the 11th.
So these are the use group 7 things. He could have a hotel, a motel,
Yeah, that's fine.
a tourist cabin.
In the air
It's
shaft.
pretty small amounts of.
Do we want to move on to any of the other?
It is.
Our other item is the budget, capital, the priorities for the capital expense and budget, and preparation for the district needs
I
statement.
don't think we
So
want to subject.
I don't think I think that's more of a internal item. So let's give him a few minutes. He did answer his phone,
Yeah.
so he should be able to.
Yeah.
Was he surprised?
Yes,
So he said we were expecting the meeting on the 11th
yes, that's what I said
of
today.
September. Okay.
He thought it was the 12th of never.
At least he answered.
Right away. Boom.
There, number 9, maybe that's it.
After,
I sent him a direct link as a panelist, so he should just come right into
as a panelist, okay.
right into the meeting.
Yeah,
No, not yet.
we're at 9.
There's 3 attendees. Those are the same 3.
Can you show the attendees again, please? Really,
And the number.
yeah, just for number.
Hey, do you have a sign-in sheet?
Do you need the sign-in sheet?
I signed you, Mark. Don't worry about it. Yeah, you're all set. Thanks, John.
Okay, well, while he is coming into the meeting, the reason 110 Christopher is coming back to us is they made a slight, if you remember, we did hear them, when did we hear them? And
The art gallery.
yeah, they were the art gallery and the music store, which is not a retail store,
Yeah,
more
we
of an
heard it in
office.
March.
We heard them in March. Yeah, and the complaints that we had heard, or the issues we had heard from people in the building were that the art gallery were having a lot of events after hours that were creating a lot of noise and were not really being used as an art gallery, as more as an event space. What the lawyer has done is revise their application to take out the specific mention of the art gallery and instead added general use for those spaces to be under use group 6 and use group 7, a general blanket use group 6 and 7. Our original resolution named a more specific use group
6B.
for that space, which was 6B.
And what is 6B?
Offices. Office.
General office.
6B is.
Some more, like.
I mean, like, why did you single out 6B?
I believe that was the original application from 110 Christopher. They had specifically said 6B. I'll take a look.
In the history, if you read through it, when they applied, it was prior to the current use groups, but the use was office. And,
Has to be some low volume
right, exactly.
people. And the other big issue was the air shafts, that they have to
Where they
close those off,
Right, there was an issue of like people smoking.
using it like something it wasn't intended, well, really disturbing the tenants,
A
terrible.
lot of after hours use.
The law office was where the guy who had the music clearance business was, who was very, the confusion was he called it a record store or something as a joke.
He had a sign that said it was
Right.
as a joke.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't a retail store. It's a
No.
one-person
Yeah,
office
I remember.
operation. He licensed music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
keep
he
that.
came. Is he the one who came and said
He
it's a
did.
joke?
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Just so we have, so as the professional in Anita, the use groups are now changed,
Oh, they are official.
right? So there's a new DOB memos on the use group. So I think that we should be clear also using the new use groups, what it is.
What is office?
I will have to look it up.
I don't have my, I should have brought my laptop, but I was rushing.
Well, we had said it had to be use group 6B. And definitely,
Excuse me, did we do that in Arezzo or
Yes.
is that just?
yes,
So use group 6B is offices, business, professional, including ambulatory diagnostic or treatment, healthcare, or government.
Well, nobody's gonna do diagnostics down there, at least not for medical. I don't know what else,
And
but office is really what it should be.
Yeah.
We didn't actually
Yeah.
say
What it was.
it's an office.
Yeah, it's just,
right here.
this is
Oh, there it
not a
is.
place where you, first of all, those stairs are treacherous, they always are, and those
so
areaways.
the expanded, the new designation includes laboratories, offices, business, professional, including ambulatory diagnostic or treatment, healthcare, or governmental. So it's still limited, but it's now 7. So old 6 and new 7.
well, I think we also wanted to be sure no eating and drinking establishments got slid up.
Isn't the request to expand it? So we should be considering what he's presenting.
Oh, right, I mean, should we be discussing this at all without him being?
If I may interrupt,
Yes.
this is Blair. I'm a tenant who's lived here over 20 years and I live directly above the space. There are apartments directly above in a pre-war building. And if I may, as you were talking, yes, one of the big problems is noise. The other problem is,
Here.
you know, the renting of the space as an office, and it turns out to be numerous people in and out, which proposes a safety concern for anyone who lives in this building. Because we are an elevator building and the elevator going straight down to the basement area. The stairs, as well as the shafts that you did mention, from smoking to, you know, after hours parties, after hours visits, plenty of noise. We have infants, elderly in the building, as you're probably aware of, and for anything other than an office space, a quiet space that it has, you know, been used as, anything that's open to the public is not really conducive to this space with people living here.
Thank you.
I think also if we could, we should find out if we can lock these doors here.
Right, we talked
There's-
about that,
Yeah, there's no reason why they should have access to all of this.
From the 3 units that they're.
Well, the doors are drawn very faintly, but there is a door here.
Could
I
you
think we
call the
should-
guy back
Yeah, can
and
we call
get
him?
him? I know what the problem is.
That was Sean.
We should be
No.
privy to these conversations, otherwise we'll just have to have it again.
No, he's not here yet. That was Sean
Let's just make sure that.
Lillian, so we're at 10.
Who's the 10th person?
That's Sean
Sean.
Sweeney.
So maybe you could direct him to the website.
Are you coming on? This is Katie Gordner again.
We're waiting.
Did someone, Carter Booth emailed it to you?
No, it would be coming from Manhattan Community.
Hold on, Carl, hold on. Where is it coming from, Carter?
Manhattan Community Board 2, and it's no reply at zoom.us.
Okay, there's a,
Zoom
coming from Manhattan Community Board 2. Otherwise, if you can,
webinar host.
can you go onto our website and go to the calendar and go to the September 11th meeting and click on the link there, please? That can work.
Has to register.
Okay, do you want me to hold on while you do that?
Did he not receive the email?
You can call this number. Okay. Yeah, Manhattan Community Board 2.
Maybe when they.
Yeah,
spell
then you go
bleachers
to calendar
wrong.
and September 11th, land use. Okay, sounds fine. Okay.
I mean, the song.
Let me take a look at these doors. Let me see.
Just drawn very faintly, but they're there. Or they should be there. Put them back if they're not.
Oh, I see. Where's the elevator?
Elevator's here, right here. So this is what needs to be locked, right here and here.
Oh, yeah, because the otherwise, those
And then
people
this,
can't.
yeah, there's no, I mean, I wouldn't like that if I lived in the building. That makes you very vulnerable.
Yeah,
There's no reason for it. They have their own bathroom, right? They have their own bathroom. That's it, self-contained.
oh, and they can get to it from the inside. They don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. They both do.
Yeah.
On the phone with him still?
No, he's gonna call me back if there's a problem. Is there another hand up?
Oh, there's more hands. I'm not sure there's not more people.
Still the same people. Bo?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean, how much deference do we have to give to this guy? I mean, I remember that was one of the oddest sessions we had with him the last time, trying to understand what the situation was. And now we have these two tenants who showed up at the last minute after having been notified very late. And this guy doesn't even have it on his calendar. I mean, I think we should just not hear it. Just, I don't know what action you want to take, but I think it's enough. It's enough. It's already-
I mean,
What happens if we just table it or he has to try another year? What happens?
Oh, it's been recalended.
Oh,
Well,
good. Who cares? It's not, this is absurd. He's not taking this seriously. We're giving him too much deference. Really, we should just end it. End it right now. How long does it take to get to a website and get on? Why didn't he know yesterday that this was up? I mean, this is ridiculous. I don't know why you're
I do
doing.
think the clock is ticking a little. We're a lot of people here. We all rushed here. He's not here.
he's not.
But also, I think we know what we're gonna say,
Planning
don't
on
we?
being here. I hope not.
He also hadn't flyered the building.
I think so. I think we know what we want, what we require. Doesn't matter.
What's changed?
Well, what changes, he's putting in a more broader use.
But they're not active uses. I mean, let's keep in mind the amount of square foot
So
that these offices or whatever spaces are gonna take. There's not a lot of damage you can do, provided
the
that it's
question-
quiet.
the question is, why should we?
Well, if I may, it's not necessarily damage, it's disruption to the tenants.
Raise your hand,
Discussions to
please.
the-
So the question is,
My
why should we
apologies,
consider
my
our
apologies.
position?
What's
my
that?
apologies, sorry. What I was gonna say, it's not necessarily damage to a
I
space.
think they said stop talking. You
Sorry.
can't
We could-
apologize and then keep
If
talking.
you could please mute. We're keeping the discussion to the committee members at this point. Sorry.
Yeah, so we're basically, this is a reconsideration of some sort, right? However, it's posited. We heard extensive testimony last time. Is there sufficient information here that would cause us to reconsider our previous position? Like that, I mean, just to cut to the chase, because we don't need to, as Bo pointed out, it was a somewhat frustrating meeting. Previously listening to a lot of testimony, which we're hearing again tonight, a lot of concern from the residents. And I mean, the applicant's not even here to present whatever is compelling that we should perhaps reconsider our position. And I think we've laid it out, and I'm not sure that his request to us took into account what we had presented. I think it's just simply to the city, and I don't know how much time we should spend on this at this point, unless there's new information, unless anybody feels differently.
Well, I would rather see us ask BSA to lay it over than to give a denial. Because the fact is that any unrented space in the basement is going to impact the rent on the upper floors. and the landlord has to make the money somewhere. So if he's not renting it in the basement, he's gonna have to pass that along to his tenants. So I would rather, I mean, the spaces are so tiny and it doesn't, I mean, if he's looking for office space, I would rather hear it from him than just issue some summary denial without having heard.
We
from
didn't
him.
say denial. I think it's.
Well, but that's, I felt where you were headed.
He's not here. I don't even know why we're discussing it. He's a no-show. We shouldn't be
As far as
even
I'm concerned,
considering
we're
it.
discussing whether to lay it over or not lay it over.
Have we
My vote is to lay it over.
Listen, this guy, what? His guy's still not on the call. This is ridiculous. Just,
I think he just came on.
Oh, he's here. He's here.
So maybe,
All right,
listen,
there we
he
go.
seems to have a
There's
dot
okay.
matrix printer, so maybe.
All right.
it's not that-
Here's Carl.
So Carl looks like he has
No.
finally joined our meeting, so. Carl, if you
Let's
can
just find out
join,
exactly what he did differently. That's it.
Yes.
We got other things to do tonight.
let's hear the change that he had proposed, but also keep in mind our resolution from March, we recommended denial of the change in the use group from 6A to 6C. So even in our original resolution,
Is
we
that
did not,
unanimous?
it was unanimous.
Well, I think that might have been unanimous based on the complaints about noise from the tenants.
The tenant that we had in the space is no longer there. It was an art
Carl,
gallery that
could you-
was causing a lot of objections.
Carl, could you,
person is
turn your-
gone.
excuse me, Carl, could you turn your camera on, please?
Not sure where to do that.
I think he's on the
Carl, were you able to turn on your camera?
So far, no.
Okay. All right. So can you repeat what you were saying?
There was a tenant that was causing a lot of trouble in the last hearing. This was an art gallery space that we had in the center of the cellar of the building. This tenant is gone and those spaces are now vacant. So what we're proposing to do, since we don't have a tenant yet, is to restrict those spaces to, I think what you could call 6A uses under the previous zoning resolution. All of that has changed now to, I think, use groups 3 and 4 for general service uses and stores and retail spaces. What we're looking to do is to have either an office space or a retail space. That's it. I can't tell you what it's going to be because we don't have any takers yet for the space.
So the retail space is it seems like a new use that was not part of your original application when you came to us earlier this year.
That's the change, yes.
Okay, and how many square feet are we, there's 3 spaces for rent?
No, one space is rented to a music store. That's a family
There we go.
operation, which I think was welcomed at the last hearing.
Okay,
We're not proposing to change that. He's in occupancy. It's the 2 center spaces. There's 2 spaces in the center of the building. They were previously occupied by one art gallery. We want to have either an office space or a retail space or both. They're both very small spaces. Individually, I think they're both less than 300 square feet, which makes it difficult to find a tenant, but nonetheless, that's what we have.
So 6B is business offices, professional services, accountant, lawyer, architect, veterinary medicine, ambulatory medical. That's not likely.
No.
And 7 would be motels and botels or what?
No. You don't want anything like that. We want the office space or retail store. I don't think anything else is gonna work there.
Well, retail store is 6 what?
I think it's 6A or 6B.
Well, I don't think it's 6B, but
Well, business offices. Carter, is that the new, is 6B?
Well, Carl, which zoning classifications are you using, the old or the new?
I'm referring to the old because the new are kind of ambiguous. What would have been 6A under the old zoning resolution, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, but I think that our recommendation the last time had been 6B.
Yes.
I think it was 6A, but I could be wrong.
no, it was 6B.
It was 6B.
So 6A is under the new
No, he's using. the
regime
old.
is 6, and 6B under the new regime is 7.
Okay, yeah, I see that, but I'd still like the uses to be limited to those office space or retail space.
What kind of retail space could be in a less than 300 square foot space?
It's got to be a very small store.
A very small store.
Yeah.
Real.
More than likely that you'd be lucky to find somebody who wants to run a one-person or two-person office. Otherwise, there's just not enough space there for the occupancy.
So Carl, have you had a chance to review our resolution from the last time you were before us?
Yeah, some time ago.
Okay, so we had taken a position at that time, which is different from what you're requesting now. Why should we reconsider that position?
Well, we think that the offices would work fine and propose that wouldn't result in any nuisance. And same with the retail store. I don't think that would cause any nuisance as well. The art gallery understands the nuisances that were involved there, and we no longer have them. But we have to be able to have some kind of a use there so as to be able to get a C of O for this building.
Is it unreasonable to have an office use as the allowable use there? That seems to have always been the use from the beginning.
Yes. Offices, I think, is one of the we'd like to have a resolution that has a little leeway in it, because if we can't find an office space, we'd at least like to have a retail space that doesn't provide any objection to the residents of the building.
Well,
I think a small retail space would be.
We heard objections from tenants in the building the last time you were here, and we have tenants who are on this meeting now who also have objections to, any uses beyond office use.
They have objections to the office use?
No, beyond the office use because of the impacts of what has been in that space previously.
Well, we no longer have that. Right now, we have for the last month or two vacant.
Hey,
So
Carl?
basically, we're starting again.
Carl, we have a question.
Do you recall, I think it was your application where we were encouraging you to let the tenants know that there was going to be discussion of this at the community board level? Was that true?
We did that. We sent out notices and published notices for the last hearing.
I know, but what about this hearing? Did you do it for this hearing?
No, not for this hearing, no.
And the reason,
Wasn't asked to, so we didn't,
why would you have not done it for this time?
because it wasn't asked to.
But what applies to the first would apply to the second, right?
Not necessarily. We're talking about a space now that's now vacant. I think.
Thank you,
needs to
ma'am.
change.
No.
we ask her to mute herself and let Blair know the proper process, Blair?
Sorry, Blair, I'm going to move you back to the attendee list because actually, when I moved you and Greg to the panelist list, I thought that you were from the applicant. So our normal process is that we have the discussion with the applicants.
No problem, no problem. I didn't realize it wasn't on mute. My apologies.
That's
So just have them
fine.
mute.
If you could just mute,
And tell me that.
and then we'll just bring you, if you could also maybe turn your cameras off, that's fine. And then when we have questions, we'll bring you back in.
My apologies, yes.
No problem. Okay.
All right. What do you want to do?
Well, so I believe our district manager did ask for this meeting to be flyered. You're saying that you did not have any communication from
No,
our?
I talked to Mark on 2 occasions.
Okay.
Coordinate the adjournment by the Board of Standing Appeals. But it was never mentioned that it'd be flyered again.
Well, we can either defer this meeting because we feel that we want to hear more from the tenants.
But I think the
But
tenants.
if we don't have if you don't have the cooperation of BSA, then we would be missing their deadline. And do we want to do that? We have to, whatever we do, we have to indicate whether we're talking about old zoning use, old uses or new uses.
I agree, it's not clear.
It's not clear, but honestly, the spaces are so tiny. And as I said before, anything that's not generating revenue in the basement is going to be inflicted on the upper floors. It's just zero-sum game. So I feel, and it's, as I said, spaces are tiny, and as long as whatever doors need to be locked, whatever insurance about quiet, I feel like we should just be able to make our point.
And
Well,
both
fair enough.
spaces before used as the art gallery?
Hmm?
Both of them were, is there a door connecting them?
No, it's through this air
So
shaft.
they just go through the air shaft?
Yeah, and actually, Carl, what was there before the art gallery?
Dressmaker.
The
It was
dressmaker?
a dressmaker, custom dressmaking.
They use both spaces as well and walk through the air shaft.
I don't know about, well, I don't think I think they went up and down. They had, one space might have, Carl, please tell us, was one space these, where they made the clothes, and the other space was where they met the customers? Does that, am I remembering that correctly?
I think it was both combined. The times I was there, the dressmaker had both of the central spaces, and they were connected. I think they
They were
had a way
connected.
of going through the shaft, and also by walking around, you can go from one side of the building to the other.
Oh, they walked through the basement.
Yeah,
Well,
walk
or
around.
even in the areyways, when you get through in the areaway.
You have to go outside.
You could go that way, or if it was.
Yeah, I think they went around like
Yeah,
that.
but we can't.
The spaces-
Walk around the back.
See what he says?
The spaces are not connected on the interior and cannot be connected on the interior.
This is very
Oh, I
short
think
walk.
you're breaking up a little bit, Carl. So the question is, are the spaces connected in the
They share
interior?
is the air shaft.
They share the air shaft.
They're not, except that
That's not a
there are
connection.
windows that open into the air shaft, and they were able to extend, they could move materials from one side of the store to the other without going outside by extending them through the air shaft.
Okay, but there's just a single entrance to the basement level that's shared between all three.
No, there's.
Spaces.
No,
No,
Now there's
Two.
two entrances.
two entrances.
two entrances, okay.
Yes. And you can walk around from one to the other, just make a big circle.
Carl, the question was, can there be a door inside between the two central spaces so that no one has to go outside or around the back? Could a doorway be made between the two spaces inside?
I would suspect that it could. I don't see why not.
Okay, thank you.
But my reason for asking that is potentially, is this not two offices or whatever, but then it could be one larger space.
Yeah.
Yes.
500-ish
Right,
square
But what's
feet.
that?
This is, it's probably an old chimney. They're not gonna knock through that.
No.
So neither in the front or the side, and not through the air shaft.
Right.
Unless they put a roof in there.
So it doesn't look like they could be
550.
combined, right? I mean-
Well, he said they.
She said-
Oh, they-
No, it could be combined. I mean, it's a bearing wall.
Oh, okay.
It's a bearing wall, but it won't be the first bearing wall.
You could.
Put a hole in.
Sure.
Yeah, it could be done, sure.
Yeah, have to put a beam and.
A
Well,
beam and maybe a roll down depending on the fire separation, if it needs a roll down.
Can I just say, I don't think it's our job to redesign this. This guy's taken so much of our time. I just think we have to dispense with it now. This is enough. We don't have to redesign. He has to come with something that we either approve or disapprove, and that's it. And I would just, if you want to lay it over, that's fine. But I would just knock it out and say no.
yeah, I don't really see a point of laying it. I mean, I think the tenant complaints are going to be the same, whether we lay it over or not. I mean, they're,
Absolutely. I don't know if this makes any,
Position.
nothing new.
there's no new information between
No.
now and next month.
I think the big question is whether we accept the retail or not, and whether that's even a good idea. I don't even know that it's a good idea.
Our conclusion.
Stairwell and coming down.
Our conclusion in March, our resolve, was that we have no objection to approving the continuation of office use
Right.
in the basement west space, and recommend denial of change of use from the custom dressmaker, which was use group 6A in the basement central and east, to the more impactful art gallery event space, use group 6C. The application before us is to allow anything within use group 6, and weren't okay with that then. I don't know why.
Why would we change it?
Why would we change our position?
And 6C is included in the new. Basically, he's asking for, 6C, which we already said no to, would be part of the new use, right, that he's asking for. It's under
They have-
7.
They have split the old use group 6 into separate new
The new,
distinctions. But we shouldn't get caught up on that because there's a straight parallel, there's a chart.
Mhm.
So they translate directly. So we shouldn't be caught up on
Figure
what
out what use we
exactly.
is a good idea
right.
Well,
or
from
limited to.
Carter said, the old 6B, which is what we said, is the new 7. And that would, if we'd be consistent.
Okay.
Or we could simply stick with their old.
I always get worried with
Okay.
being too specific, and you better be right,
So
then
we say the old 6B then, which is.
Just
what
say
we
we're
said.
abiding by our previous
office.
preference for
Nothing
office
has
only.
changed.
That's all.
But retail isn't gonna keep the tenants up at night if there's a little.
No,
We
it's
did,
not.
did we
I'm
consider, but we
in favor
didn't
of
consider retail in our previous resolution.
But we what?
We didn't consider retail at all in our previous.
They weren't asking
Right,
for it.
yeah, they weren't
That's the
asking.
only change, is
Right.
that, or suggesting some retail in addition to an office.
I mean,
I mean,
is
I think
retail,
it's
I guess the
room.
question is retail going to be more impactful?
In an office.
I think so, because you have more people coming.
Except did
And
you
of
see
course
the
it's okay.
hours? That it's 10 to 6 days a week? They did agree to that.
There's no at night for the, if the store closes at 6, it's quiet. If you have an office and they're there, until 11 at night, the woman right above can do it.
So I think we just have to be mindful of the history. It was originally offices, right? All of it was offices. They just went ahead and changed the uses as time went on without permission. There's lapse in the permits. And then as this evolved, there were complaints from the tenants because they broadened the use from the office space that you were just mentioning. And that's the impactful use. This is zoned as use group, R6, so it's residential. It's a non-conforming basement use, but they keep wanting to expand the impact onto the residential. And the argument is that there are other non-conforming uses throughout this area of Christopher Street on the ground floor. That's true, but these uses, as they expand or continue, seem to impact the residential tenants. And that was why we went through this at length the last time, was because of the impacts on the residents.
Gallery. Yeah,
And we had direct testimony of how it was impacted.
Because of the art gallery, not because of, we weren't discussing,
But it's not an office.
we weren't talking retail.
The use of the air shaft.
Right.
And the primarily
Or
after hours nature of the event space.
Yes.
And it wasn't even used as an art gallery. It was more as an event space.
But the hours were supposed to close at 6. That was what
They were,
Original.
Hours of the art gallery?
yes, they were not supposed to be open until.
But they were.
2 a.m., but they were.
and trust me, the retail will not go here. They close we try and try all over the neighborhood. Even the shoemaker can't make it in a basement.
Right.
But people just don't want to climb down.
It's gonna be shopping at 10 PM
And nobody's wants to walk down a steep
at
flight of
night.
stairs.
Yeah.
At any time.
It's true.
They close up, they don't survive.
Everybody sees that they're down there, so they
Right.
don't get foot traffic.
Yeah.
They'll be lucky if they get some
Right, but
offices.
so why not give them the chance to make a few dollars there as long as it's quiet and controlled hours?
What's the recourse if it's not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even an office can be loud.
What is
The recourse there. Maybe the guy with the pianos and the guitars will start to play it. What's?
No, I think it's in the lease. They have to require in the lease that the music isn't,
That
loud.
may be the way it is now.
Sorry?
It may not be a condition of the current lease with the music place that they can
I'm
only,
talking about the store or anybody playing loud music.
yes.
Could be, so I'm just saying in the lease between the landlord and the tenant, no matter what it is, it needs to be so that they're not a nuisance to the residents.
Well, that could be true of any use group.
We heard very specifically that the music person used it as an office,
Yeah,
not
it's
as a
not a
retail.
music person.
And the retail has a higher volume of people coming in and out.
And they turn the music up to
Dress
wake
maker,
up,
appointments.
there, yeah,
Attract people to that basement.
exactly,
I did want to go back to what Bo was saying, which is perhaps we should take a straw poll, see where we're at and not going, right, Bo? You just,
Yeah, the thing is, this is, it's a pre-existing condition, non-conforming use. They've been pushing the envelope for years and years and years, resulting in the unpleasant conditions for the tenants. The man comes unprepared. I think you guys are giving them much too much leeway in redesigning what should be here. They should come with something that's reasonable. I think just not having seen it physically myself, I could see maybe an office is okay, but the idea of putting retail in that space is absurd. So, just be.
Market to decide, I think. That's for the market to decide.
well, somebody
Well,
asked me.
look
I
at this,
have
what a
an
free
opinion.
market, it's, okay, this is ridiculous. I say we either disapprove this or approve it for offices and move on. It's too much. This is really just too much.
All right, let's,
second what Bo has.
yeah, let's take a straw poll. So who's with Bo in that we keep the original,
6B,
keep
yeah.
the original restriction
Yes.
from March? Right? Anyone for expanding the use?
Only as with parameters about the door, whatever doors need to be locked,
Yeah,
whatever,
locking
whatever,
and the shaft.
insulation, whatever concerns, whatever hours. I'm not talking about moving Zara in there. I'm talking about some tiny, I'm just thinking about the landlord having to make his nut and not inflicting high rents on the tenants, because that's a modest building. Okay, and if we're
People
interested.
have offices.
Yes, right, fine, but if you can't find anybody to put in retail,
Or the
I don't think we should deny.
Frederica, you have no idea what the situation is with this landlord. You don't know how many buildings he owns. You don't know what kind of group it is. You don't know what his financial structure is. For you to say that we should give him a few more pennies is ridiculous. You're basing this on no information, and that's not our job. This is something that really needs to be individually approved for the minimum use with impact for the tenants, and that's the end of it.
Arturo?
Yeah, just real quick, I guess, from the limited information that I have, it doesn't really sound like there's any net new information from the last time they came. So I think, although I agree with you, Frederica, I think it had, the attorney and the landlord come in with new information, we've been trying to rent this for offices for X amount of months, or we're willing to make these design changes for retail space. We're willing to accept these parameters to kind of meet the needs of tenants. I think I would also agree with you a little bit more, but because it doesn't seem like there's any net new information, I'm inclined to kind of also go with.
Okay, I take your point, and I change my vote.
Okay.
Can we hear from the public just so we can?
Okay, yeah,
That's
so,
a good note, just
That
a
was-
reminder.
yeah.
Very helpful, thank you.
All right.
No use here,
Help me get there.
block that.
All right, so we
Okay.
have our public
Okay.
members, not public members, I'm sorry, members of the public.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you for staying. If there are any other questions or comments, please raise your hand. Greg? Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I just want to add that I agree, I appreciate everything that you're saying and doing. And I don't think any of us necessarily have a problem with an office tenant of some sort. But the problem is pushing into, when you're saying commercial, that's just the beginning of, it's going to be pushed further, much like what you've been discussing, where they're just pushing the boundaries each time without getting any kind of regulation to it or whatever. That's all.
Thank you,
Okay.
Greg. Blair?
Yeah, I agree with Greg, and I thank you again for all your work. Like I said, the space is not conducive space-wise, but also for the tenants that live here for anything else than a quiet office space. Once you open it up to any kind of retail, you have to remember that retailers play music all day. They have people coming in and out. No matter what, there is disruption. And it starts pushing boundaries. I agree with him. And yeah, same thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.
Anita points out that we do want the doors closed. We do not
Locked.
want the office people to be able to access the rest of the residential areas of the basement.
And the elevator.
Where the elevator is.
Mhm.
So it seems to be a door that could be locked in the corridor.
Currently left open. Okay, we could add that.
Oh, it's
as-
there.
Yeah, it's not gonna cost them anything.
It's not a
No, and I think if I were a tenant, I would definitely want that.
I think it's the regulation, right, Carter?
Regulation for what?
Well, when we hear SLA applications, you cannot have any access between the.
No, that's a different reason.
Different reason, okay.
But I would move that we have an official vote and move forward.
Okay.
Okay, so, and what are you saying about the air shaft?
Oh, it should not be used,
No use of air shaft.
secured, I think it'd be nice that they can open the window a crack, but it's not a passageway and it's not a
No
congregation.
entrance into air shaft. No
Yeah.
enter, no entrance.
Well, previously they've had issues with the air shaft with the cigarette smoke and the
They can't sit in there smoking
Right.
and talking on
and
the
the
phone.
sounds and the noise.
Yeah.
It's not for them.
Locked door between office space.
All right, so it sounds like we're gonna be pushing to a resolution that's essentially the same as last time.
Yeah.
We're gonna limit it to 6A. We'll find out what the mapping is to the current
To 6B,
6B, sorry,
current 6B.
current 6B.
And just spell it out because everybody's confused. And when 6 turns to 7, already lost me.
So
I can't trust myself.
enumerate the,
And then we'll add in,
Yes, just spit it out, like,
okay.
the door should be locked and then the air shaft access should be restricted.
Can I say something about the doors?
Yes, is that you, Carl?
Yeah,
Can't tell who's speaking.
I know.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
I'm
Okay.
Paul Sabara. I just like to point out that it may.
I can't understand it.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little.
The building code to lock any of those doors. I don't think it's permissible doors because it may be locking a required egress.
Not for this low occupancy. I don't think so. I would like to have you look into that more, but this is, you've got 3 or 4 people. You You don't need two means of egress if you only have.
Okay, enough is enough. That's it. Let's go. This is ridiculous.
Should we call the vote?
Thank you. So let's do the official vote. Everyone in favor of,
I,
I think we should ask,
Okay,
I
goodbye,
think we should
Carl.
ask for the,
anyone,
the architect as to whether or not that's permissible.
any recusals, any abstentions?
Did John Paul vote? John Paul, did you vote? Okay,
Are
thank
you
you.
voting? Okay, you're voting with, right?
I'm voting with, yes.
Any voting against?
We don't know what.
No?
Sean-
Yeah,
Oh,
who's
just
not
the
on
man.
camera right now?
I just put down-
Sean is back. Sean, how do you vote? Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much, Carl. Thank you for the tenants at 110 Christopher for joining the meeting. And we'll move on to our next agenda item. Thank you.
it's gonna be on Zoom for the rest of the meeting.
I'm sorry?
It'll be on Zoom for the rest of the.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. We'll
Okay.
see you back on the Zoom.
Thank you. Bye.
Adios.
How do I?
Okay,
Okay, bye now.
fine, thank you.
Need another piece of paper to write on.
Okay. All right, so our next agenda item is looking at that time of year again
I know.
for our budget priorities for fiscal year 2026.
Oh, my God.
Did everyone have a chance to look at the emails we sent around? Basically, last year we had 4 specific items that we had asked for. I also counted, although it's not necessarily from
capital.
us.
We can share.
Capital or?
There was one, I think there was one capital, 3
And
expense.
this is from the.
Or
read
we
it.
have that next one.
There was two capital.
Funding.
There's 1 and 3.
The affordable housing at 2 Howard and the recreation center at 388.
The 388 technically is from Parks, so technically that's not from us.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So sorry, there was another email I sent with,
That lists
in the body of
yeah.
it, I put in the text. Yeah, so technically 388 Hudson was a request from Parks.
And we're getting it.
We are getting it. So,
Marable and these two.
so it is useful. They do listen. Let me just find.
Which one are we getting? Sorry.
At 388 recreation.
Oh, okay, right, for the, right.
Yeah, so previously, 388 Hudson, we'd asked for 3, well, Parks had, CB2 had asked for.
There you go.
CB2 had asked for 3 floors of recreation space in 388 Hudson. And the city has said that they will,
With a caveat.
with
Well,
maybe some potential caveat.
The city said they were not recommending for funding the study of soft sites. And the hazard on property,
You're over on the expense side.
the agency will accommodate
Yeah,
the
that's-
function and existing
Yeah,
resources.
can we do, yeah, so let's do the capital first. There's 1 capital from last year.
Ooh, that's
Right, it's wrong.
1 capital budget priority, which was to ask the New York City's mayor office, New York City Mayor's office to work with the federal government and all federal elected officials to transfer ownership of 2 Howard Street to New York City HPD for development of 100% affordable housing. And we had asked for this, I think this is the 2nd year in a row we had asked for that. At least the 2nd year in a row. This is going to be a long-term ask.
Back off.
I don't think we should back off. Nothing
I
has
don't
changed.
agree. I agree. We should not back off.
Right?
further study.
Eugene, can I just say something, Eugene?
Yes. So,
But yeah, but who would develop it? You know, I mean, is it, you mean to do an RFP for a developer? Is that what we're saying? Or?
well, it would, for what we understand, it would be a multiple step thing. First, we need to convince the federal government to hand it over to a city agency. But my understanding is also the city agency needs to then fund the development. So it is going to be a complicated.
Well, you mean funded even because in order to do affordable housing, of course, any developer would need some government funds. So is that what we're talking about?
I think we were asking specifically for a study, right? Or we were asking for them to,
What, we transfer ownership?
Oh, we said that the responsible agency is the mayor's office, and their response wasn't to deter us from applying to the mayor's office. It was further study by the agency of this request is needed. So maybe we have to be a little bit more strategic about which agency we apply to. I mean, is the mayor's office the best one? Or
should
or
HPD
would
be the
it
lead
be HPD?
agency?
Yeah, and maybe we could do a little research, homework on that.
For this month,
And
And,
hone it a
and,
little
and
bit better.
refine our ask?
yeah,
Maybe we should call HPD, maybe we should talk to
Yes.
Tyler and ask.
We
him.
could, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
so the good news is the city didn't say no,
No, they didn't say no.
nor did they do anything.
Right.
but they didn't.
passive aggressive.
So yeah, I think we can refine this to maybe more identify, like you said, if HPD is the proper lead
Right.
agency. And,
Like, who would the federal government transfer it to?
right, and what mechanism do they need?
And so that's a good general question for HPD.
Yeah, and we did meet with, I forget the office, is it there? I think we met with Nadler's office a long time ago about this.
I think that one of the city agencies might be better.
Yeah,
Well, there was a large town, there was a town hall with Chuck Schumer many years ago, maybe before COVID, in which we brought this to his attention. And,
Well, it was always connected to the early Elizabeth Street Garden discussions.
and Schumer said he would work on it. So we've reached out, to at least, I mean, Nadler's no longer our rep.
well, but for us, we need to find out from the city side,
Yes.
who do we
Yeah, I
speak
think if
to?
you call
Yeah.
HPD and just say, if you had a federal site that was going to be transferred to the city
How-
for
what's the
development,
mechanism?
would you be that agency or would it be another agency?
Okay,
What?
what other agency, what if,
Well, let's hear it from them.
Eugene, I just wanted to chime in on this one. I think from the city,
yes,
we should be referring this to the agency who will advocate for this to happen. I think that if we referred it to HPD, they would simply say, it's not us because nothing has happened yet. I think that's another step after getting it transferred, and the only entity who I think would be able to advocate for that would be coming from the mayor's office. I'm not aware of any, those agencies going out to seek sites. I'm not clear about that, but I would think that we need the high level executive office to advocate for it to happen. And then the next step would be HPD.
Well, the mayor would want it to happen because of the city of yes. I mean, they want access to every buildable site.
yeah.
It's just a phone call to ask and then just a detail, really.
It'd also be great to understand what they want to further study, because it just seems like fairly vague and ambiguous, what their concerns or what the open questions are.
What they mean by
Well, but-
study.
The federal government isn't going to create housing in the city, so they have to transfer to an agency, a city agency that would. And that's.
But the
Guideline
question,
of what
we
we
need
would
to
like to
have
happen.
funding set up before they will do that. I don't know if the federal
I
government
mean,
has.
we just need something clear to get everybody working for and to advocate from. But because when we're in this process, when we ask the city for something, we have to be very clear what we're asking for. HPD, I suspect it might get just kicked back.
Because it might be too premature to involve HPD at that point.
It's not in the realm yet.
Yeah. It still would be good to refine this somewhat from our ask last year.
Yeah.
And that may be that we just need a very clear resolution, course of actions.
Hmm.
I'm trying to see, does anyone remember if this was on anything that came out of Mark Levine? I mean, there've been a lot of things recently about possible sites.
I think that was one of the soft sites. We had asked, that's one of what our expense budget asks. Okay.
It's very unusual that, in my recollection, in the last 12 years, that the land use committee has capital budget requests
At all?
at all. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
And I want to suggest that we add one when you're done discussing it.
And add a capital budget request? Okay, what's your suggestion?
Funds to organize a robust and very public process to determine the best use of the Dapolito Center.
So Dapolito.
Now, you could make the argument that that's a Parks Committee, but it's a use, it's a change, it might involve a change of use. So I feel that land use, my feeling is that the best result would be land use and parks working together very closely on this entire thing. And maybe they would be interested in signing on to this, I don't know. But I feel that there may be a change of use in the building, and the conversation about whether there would be or not is something that we ought to spearhead. So I don't know whether it's funds to organize the process to determine it or some other verbiage, but I think the next use of the Dapolito Center is something that we ought to be out in front of.
For a study, is that?
No, I think it seems to me that the Parks Committee is pretty committed to doing something different with the building. And I don't think we shouldn't assume that demolition is the way to go. I think we should have a conversation about what's the next best use, and then that leads to whether it needs to be demolished or not. I don't think we should presuppose that it needs to be demolished.
well, where is
So what would-
landmarks?
Landmarks is, according to, something that confuses me is that Chanel told me that the building is not a landmark. It may be in a landmark area, but it's not a landmark.
That's
It's
correct.
a
So,
landmark building, guys.
not according to Chanel, so
Well,
that.
I'm Frederica. I had addressed this at our joint meeting previously. There's some confusion that board members are spinning that somehow an individual landmark has different protections than a building within a landmark district. And that's simply not true. I refer you back to the recording of that meeting. You can review it. We have members of the Landmarks Committee on here. I know you've been a board member a long time. You see all the landmarks applications we have. You're sort of splitting this, and also this is the subject of an individual meeting later this month
Right,
at the Landmarks Committee.
right, and part of what you said to me sounded a little bit garbled. I would have liked to have heard the whole thing. But regardless of what the landmark status is, if the intention of the Parks Department is to do something with the building, I think we ought to have a very prominent role in figuring out what the best use of the building should be, whether it's to continue as it is or something else.
So are you recommending that we ask for I'm trying to figure out what the specific budget request is.
Funds to organize or conduct
A study or-
a robust and very public process to determine the best use of the next best use of the Dapolito Center.
Reuse, adaptive use.
Yeah, adaptive, whatever.
But that assumes that it can't stay a recreation center.
No, not necessarily.
But you think
Could include,
Right, exactly.
yeah, I think the wording
Well, okay,
is,
when we pass 3 or 4 resolutions asking for a multi-story, full-service Parks Department rec center, did we really think that we were gonna have one in one building and another one in the building next door? Maybe.
We didn't have that conversation of not thinking that.
Right, but do we really think they're gonna give us 2 rec centers
I
next
think
to
that's
each
what a lot
other?
of people were hoping, was that you had two rec
Why
centers
would
with
we
different uses.
What neighborhood, what neighborhood has 2?
Yeah, it's not, I agree with you. I've been asking the same question. It's like a reaction to putting the facility at the Hudson
at
Street,
388 Hudson.
that the other one becomes obsolete. They're not gonna give us 2, except maybe the outdoor pool.
Yes.
Exactly, the mural and the pool are,
It's a what in the pool?
the mural.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Will have to be a different
Well,
conversation.
an outdoor pool is not something,
Cannot be done at 388 Hudson.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Shouldn't we be having a public hearing on this matter and passing a resolution before we insert it into
We're
any
not-
type of a
I
capital or
think
expense
I think we would have a,
budget? Because right now we have multiple conflicting situations that are occurring at the board on this issue. And to perpetuate those without stopping first, gathering our thoughts and deciding what a course of option, a course of direction is first, is important to do.
well, I have no ideas about what the use of the building should be, and I'm not suggesting that we suggest any in our capital budget priority. I'm saying we want to be sure that we're included in their deliberations and that our voice is heard. So let's create a situation where that can happen.
Well, what kind of money, who would we hire if this were an expensive?
I think this would be directed to the Parks Department because they're the ones who own the building. If you want to say that this should come from the Parks Committee, you might do that. But this is most likely going to be a change of use. And to sideline the Land Use Committee in the process, I think would be an opportunity lost. So however you want to phrase it, that the Land Use Committee gets to have an integral role in these conversations, I think is important to spell out.
But I think that's good points, but the Parks Department already told us what they want to do.
No, they did not.
Were you not at the meeting I was at?
Yes, I was. They said they were.
They said they were going to knock down the building.
Sorry, Carter, they said they were considering demolition, but they had no idea about what the next use was going to be.
They had no idea what they were going to do with the building after they knocked it down?
That's what they said, Bo, yeah.
And it
I
doesn't
know, I was there, I know what
It
they
doesn't
said.
necessarily mean that they're going to knock down the whole thing. I'm thinking of Rudin and the hospital, St. Vincent's. They did maintain what they thought was the most preservable parts of the.
Oh, please, that's ridiculous. That was a whole a power play, big real estate thing. All the politicians were in bed with everybody else on that. Don't even bring that up. This is, they said they were going to knock down the building. They said it was over for that building.
No, they didn't. They said they were considering demolition, and we shouldn't assume that the building is a goner.
Well,
I shouldn't allow them to assume that we're okay with that.
Knock down the building.
Sorry,
There was a general feeling that they wanted to knock down the building, and people applauded that sentiment, physically applauded it in the room.
To knock it down?
Yes.
And that's because the people, Susan's right, and that's because the people,
Remember that, Anita?
the people who use,
everybody objecting to it.
That's what I remember.
the people who use the facility think it's terrible, and they'd rather have a new building that's up to date and modern and everything else. So that's why they were applauding. That's a different question. We have what we consider what is a historic building, and we'd like to have something in it that's worthwhile for the community. Those are two different questions, I think.
But I want to go back to the issue of what money we would ask for in this.
The money to conduct the process that determines the use of the building / site.
The community use. I think the concern is that lot could be sold and it'll no longer.
I think there's an assumption there that it's staying in a community use.
Very valuable land, very valuable.
Right, it's not supposed to be just a golden calf.
No, it would be a condo. That's
with an outdoor pool.
I mean, I personally.
with Keith Haring.
With a Keith Haring outdoor pool, exactly.
I mean, this is just broadening the conversation probably more than we ought to. This is an opportunity for Community Board 2 to double the amount of affordable housing that we can generate if we turn that building into an affordable housing building with a mural and an outdoor pool.
City-owned land.
Yes. Yeah, and that's.
The other thing that we don't have is publicly owned government space to have services to offer that are affordable and can broaden those uses across the city. We have no sites. We have no government-owned sites to offer any services. Housing is one part of that, but affordability on a larger scale of having a space for the city to conduct services for people is just as important. So I think that we're becoming a little myopic here when we constantly run into this across many of our other committees that we don't have any city-owned sites in which to offer any services. And a part of that is that if in fact the affordable housing is built, it also should be accompanied by other city services as well, which are extremely lacking in our community.
Right, but in my fantasy world, I imagine a new library, community rooms, community services, and affordable housing. I would love to see that combination. Then what we've done is between that building and 388, and on the ball fields, the pool, we've created a campus of community uses that I think is really, really exciting and comprehensive.
So I just want to point out here that as far as the reason that Landmarks Committee is, part of the reason they're meeting to talk about this is that this facility was historically an incredibly important contributing building as a bathhouse. And its construction was very specific to support all the tenement housing that had been constructed throughout the South Village. And that's why it was specifically included within the Landmark District. And it is a contributing building. Of course, the question is, did the city just neglect it? Or is its current use for the interior use too costly? But that does not mean the result is removal of the building. So there's a lot more to this discussion that's skipping a big part of the process. And I think that the Parks Department has adequate funding. To make that a budget request is just going to get kicked out because they have adequate funding for their in-house research on what to do with their properties. They don't need additional funding. It may be that the community board needs funding to explore the uses on our own independently, but I don't think that the city agencies need funding in order to do that. This is a part of what agencies' regular funding is used for.
Well, but my feeling is to use these capital budget priorities as a way of shining a light on this subject. And if somebody else can figure out a way of asking for something that also shines a light, I'd be happy to do that. I frankly feel that having the landmark meeting first actually makes no sense. Because what I would rather do is have the conversation about what the next best use is of the building and the site. And then when there's consensus about what we want, then the Landmarks Committee meets and decides whether this landmark building is worth tearing down in order to use it for X. So starting with—
That's not how it works, Frederica.
Well, you
the
say
building
that.
is either contributing or it's not contributing.
Right, but given—
There's not a subjective on the interior use.
Okay, well,
The landmarking is on the external part of the building. You're making up stuff, but it's not how it works.
Well, not how it works.
You don't make a subjective decision about, oh, this is a better use, so you knock it down. That's not what the landmarks law is about.
Well, from a community wish point of view, I think it would be more effective. But it's very confusing to me that when I had a conversation with Chenault last month, he told me, and I have it in my notes, it's not a landmark building.
But it's not, it's an individual landmark.
But
It needs landmark, very rare. Individual landmarks is like Grand Central Station. That's not norm. These are all,
I want the best for that meeting on September 30th, but I really don't understand. I feel like people are going to be flailing around.
I think one of the things that I've understood from landmarks, in order to tear down a building, it's gotta be not salvageable. It's not whether it's expired its use, it's whether it's, and that's the argument that was being set forth in our last meeting, is that this building, even though we've sat through many meetings, what that said, well, we have to do this, and we're okay. Now it's like, well, it's just too much, and it doesn't work, and that was how it was presented.
Right, although the caveat is they were saying it doesn't work as a rec center. We don't know that it doesn't work as
Right.
another.
Well, it's an unstable
Right.
building.
And in fact, it probably, I've seen worse buildings, I mean, to be honest, and they're still standing. So it takes a lot to tear down a landmark building.
Mhm.
It
But
really
it's
It's a
does.
ADA
pool.
things that they said to make the pool ADA compliant
Right.
for a fortune of money, you end up losing one of the 3 lanes, so that seems like a bad use of.
Use of money, right. But, if you take out the pool and maybe it's not a
Have
pool
something else,
anymore,
then it's a big
right,
space.
it doesn't, right, it could
But we don't
still
have
be a
the pool.
useful building,
Yeah.
right,
I mean, there's a lot, we need a lot.
right.
Well, there's other uses that could be used.
So are you
for it.
saying that on the 30th, it's actually going to be like a math problem where they talk about the cost of making it, making it usable?
We don't discuss costs.
No, but what are the facts that we're going to deal with at that building? They're going to, where something really.
I don't know, stay
constructive
tuned.
is going to come. No, I mean, you have to go in, otherwise it's just the bloody glove.
Well, I think,
Well, people need a place to express themselves. I think that's part of what this.
Blathering if they don't know what the topic is.
The topic is whether we want to tear it down or whether we
No,
want
the
to
topic
be.
has to be, is
preserve
what
it.
you just said, whether it's salvageable, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of a math problem.
no.
What's an
no,
engineering
none-
problem?
no.
It's a challenging question is what it is. Because it was very clear to me as they are presenting an argument to tear it down.
Right.
And you could go in there and say, well, we can keep all of this, but it's not a basketball. So
Are you sure that Parks is going to be well represented and they know what their job is at that meeting?
I don't run the meeting.
No, but you're on landmarks. I thought maybe you know.
But what about this?
No, I think we need a place to vocalize. Everybody has a lot of opinions. I think that's what's
Let's
useful.
think about the old Homestead building on 14th Street. They kept the facade.
Yeah,
Even though it was sort of a crumbling mess. And the houses on Bay Street.
Yeah,
the
you see
houses
that a
were-
lot.
So there's possible,
I think we have to consider it, but again, it's now being presented as, it's a setup to tear it down.
It is, and that's why
That
Andrew
was the
Vernon's
presentation.
reacting,
So whether we salvage it or salvage part of it, but it's not that easy, just,
no, it's not.
but they're powerful people too. They can make the argument, building department will fall in line. It depends on who's paying the bills. If it's all the same people, they'll get together on it.
Well, Andrew's gonna keep the pressure on.
Well, and I think.
It would seem,
do that.
to me, we can have this discussion next month after that meeting
The
occurs.
landmarks meeting.
Right, and after that committee has taken a position, we still have time to do this, but I think that on that particular issue, I don't think it belongs to any one committee. It's much more of a holistic issue. So
Yeah.
I hope that's
piecemealing out these parts
really hope that's
is not constructive to the board. It's not constructive to what's happening. It's without an overall position of the board, it just doesn't seem constructive to have all these bits and pieces happening when we don't even know what it is that we want to do.
So can we agree that we can wait until after the landmarks meeting to determine whether we add this type of
Do
capital?
we have the time in the calendar for that?
I think so, because
Great.
this is voted on at the October full board.
And it's an exec. Well, I mean, it's debated in exec.
Right, so let's wait, but let's just put it like in the picture and
Right,
how it,
to the next.
how it.
Is it October?
It seemed to me it's not a one committee decision because it's such it crosses a lot of committees.
Right.
And especially if it has social services in it or you know, there
It's
is,
not just housing.
it's sort of like a work from home kind of situation.
So should
type
we
of thing.
ask for a, a four-way meeting
Well,
landmark?
I think that
No.
maybe after September, but I see here that in the expense priorities
From last year.
from last year,
Mhm.
that one of the request number 4 was allocate funds to determine if the renovation of Tony Dapp Recreation Center is worth doing, and if not, create a plan for building an alternative center in our community. That's almost exactly what I'm saying, except I'm moving it a step ahead by saying,
That was
allocate
the
funds to
parks.
determine if the renovation is worth doing, and if not, what the next use should be.
And what
So-
is the date on that meeting? On that,
What?
that was last.
No,
year.
this is last
I
year's.
understand. What was the date? Do you have the date?
In the date, it was in the expense priorities.
Last year.
October 19th, yeah.
What?
It was October 19th, the full.
So it was at the October full board. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so let's hold up.
So we can wait and,
that's
Yeah,
what I
let's
think.
hold on.
Yeah.
Then let's go to the expense budgets from the ones we had last year. I don't have these numbered unfortunately, but the first one was a request to DCP and HPD to create a list. Is it number 2? No, that was, the one I'm looking at is one for identifying all government-owned
Right here.
properties.
What number?
CB2 number 10. Yeah, so allocate funds to identify government-owned properties as potential affordable housing sites. And this was toward HPD and DCP last year.
So do we ever like go back to, when do we get these comments? At one point in the year, do we get them? The
That's a good
response.
question. I'm not sure exactly.
Because if we got them 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, and they say they will accommodate,
But they still have
why,
it.
maybe we should go back and say, okay, when are we gonna hear back from you on this?
Follow-up, yeah.
Right, because they said they would accommodate this
Yeah,
last year.
so maybe before we list it again, we should say,
Is it
you
in
know,
process?
it's been a year, tell us what you found.
So this is number 10. One after that is for DCP, asking to identify a study of soft sites.
Right, and they said this is not recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
like,
last
maybe
year
we
they
should
did.
call DCP and say, oh, why
Why?
not?
Why not?
Yeah, I think we have to keep pushing for that one.
Yeah,
Ask,
Again,
they didn't give a reason for saying
the
no.
city of yes happens, God knows
let's
with,
find out the reason.
Yeah.
what's going on these days with Adams.
Number.
But that's what they're gonna do.
18.
What is this?
18.
Right?
Okay, so we'll find out and we'll ask why it was
Follow
recommended.
up.
No. Right.
Yeah, it seems a bigger priority now.
Yeah,
And
you're right, especially after City of Yes, it seems like
Now it seems ridiculous. Now it seems ridiculous.
for them to say no.
Yeah.
No, they never produced the list.
We asked for it, let's do.
We asked for a list, yeah.
And then the other one, was number 8, allocate funds to develop a citywide data set of rent stabilized and rent controlled units. And they say that HPD is not the
That's
ones
not the
to,
agency.
so then, well, who does that?
Well, the rent stabilization.
Say OTI then, right? We also asked for DOF and OTI. So are they,
One
are they
conversation,
saying?
wait a minute,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
have one conversation, sorry. I can't hear what's going on, sorry, thank you.
There are requests last year, which was CB2 number 8. This was for allocate funds to develop a citywide data set of rent stabilized and rent controlled units. We did want that. We don't have it. We know that we are losing a lot of rent stabilized units, but we don't have a good accounting of that. Last year, we did refine this request because I think this is multiple years we've asked for this, right? I think last year was the first year we said, we asked the DOF, the Department of Finance, as one of the agencies.
But it was, what we heard was that HPD doesn't do it.
Right.
So
It's also something that would be very useful when developing Soho and NoHo.
Yeah.
Right.
That they
And
have
we've been
to,
asking for this information. so that
accommodate-
Every time we get a chance.
Well, you know
Right.
how
what?
many get lost.
Well,
Right.
first of
Well, how
all,
many are we losing? And there's really no one agency that keeps track of it.
well, these are all supposed to be registered with the state HCR. That's, the information should be available. But secondly, in light of the city of Yes, it seems even more important.
Yeah.
And all the, and you know,
This
the
one
largest
rises
affordable
higher up.
housing program is the rent regulated housing.
So the Department of Finance does track these, I mean, in a, you know, in a, not a direct way, but I think these units have to be registered, right, every couple of years with the Department of Finance.
Trust me, they know where everybody is.
And when they come out, they go over to HPD, right? Is that?
I mean, when they come off the,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what that
But if
process
you have
is.
number 8 and number 10, and they're both to HPD, and one is that HPD doesn't do it, and the other one is that HPD should have done it, then it's a good conversation to have with HPD about both.
Well, 8, well, I guess what I want to point out is 8, we didn't just ask HPD last year, we asked HPD and DOF
Yeah, but
and
it's-
Did we
OTF.
ask all three of them? Or, I mean, we mentioned all three of them, but did we ask all three of them, or did we just send it to, because we?
Oh, you're right, under responsible agency, we just put HPD.
Yeah,
Right.
so I would,
Yeah,
I mean, they'll know more than we do. So it's kind of like one-stop shopping.
I guess they're kind of just hunting though, because usually this data is
Own it.
like by the state, right? They're the ones who you would contact and say, hey, like, is my apartment rent controlled or rent stabilized? And so I think that's maybe why they're like bouncing us around. Is there?
but the city has access to this information.
I agree.
They definitely.
So I guess that's been our challenge is, right, we don't want to get the answer no, that's a state program, because the city does know this.
There was just something in the Times the other day, one of those real estate section things where someone, again, was asked, you know,
Yeah.
about can you trace the history? And they said, yes and no, you know,
Yeah.
they don't, it's not 100%.
They don't make it easy also. It's also
You can always get
one
the
place.
answer. Sometimes there are these gaps and then can you really get the information from 15 years ago?
Yeah, it's not like every year. I know the DOF doesn't collect it every year. So
Well,
it's not,
Is this something that we should ask for money for George to work on? Is that maybe? Because maybe he
you mean a
had more-
consultant?
That would be something we'd ask the city.
Yeah, the city.
No,
would
that
do
We'd
it.
do that on
That
our
would
own if
be-
we didn't like the answer we got from them.
Well, I don't know. We don't ask for money.
I guess what I'm really trying to get to is that it would be good to identify the agency that could provide this to us,
Mhm.
so that they're not
Yeah.
gonna come back to us and say, hey, no,
No.
it's this person who actually
Right,
could be doing
and
it.
I fact don't get that answer.
And I was
And that's the
suggesting
reason why
that we
last-
call HPD and say, well, if it's not you,
Who is that?
Who is it? We could start there. I mean, we added Department of Finance because they have access to it.
I mean, we'd have to waste a whole other year putting in Department of Finance only to find out that, oh, no, they're not there.
Well, it could also be OTI. They're the ones that produce the
But
city
it's like
data
just
sets.
picking up the phone and, you know, having a conversation.
Well, I think that the key is also that we're monitoring, not losing affordable housing.
Right.
Right.
So we could reach out to HPD.
I think that a lot of this is, the reason we keep getting kicked back is because it's DHCR, which is the state agency.
Right.
And while tangentially the city may have information, I don't think that they have all of the information in the manner in which people that we're looking for this.
Yeah, it's tricky. If you want to ask about how many rent regulated units there are in community board 2, the closest thing you can do is to get the information for our assembly district. And that, because it is a state piece of information. So.
Yeah, I've shared that data, and I think Eugene, you've seen it. That came from was it George who did the study for us just the other month? That gentleman, blanking on his name. But
There's a scraped data set somewhere out there.
Yeah, he had actually worked backwards from Department of Finance information, but it's not necessarily accurate.
There's gap.
It's working backwards on the building owners filing certain classifications to the Department of Finance, but it's not what I think that everybody is looking for, which is the actual specific units.
Right,
And
it's a
in which
roundabout way to get
buildings.
it. Yes. But I mean, but if we just say that it's a state data set, then I mean, I guess the question is, do we stop asking for it? I mean, we do want this data set,
Well,
so we would want to find a way to include it as a city budget request.
let's go on.
Or perhaps we should ask them to create it.
Right.
That was that was our request. We asked that they create the data set so we could download the data set.
Right.
As part of, the same way you can go on and download a data set of 311 complaints. Right, it's data that.
I know, but this is something they're not interested in,
Right.
in sharing. And it's
But
not
that complaints
interested in
we can get.
monitoring it going down, 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 down.
Yeah.
That's
when we
the
don't have the
reality.
information.
Yeah, exactly. The reason we want it is probably the way we should phrase it too.
Yeah.
So that it is useful.
To identify the losses.
Or identify a way of maintaining.
Right.
The ones we have. And if we do lose them, how many do we gain? Because that math is not going to work out in the affordable housing favor.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe, Eugene, because we've seen that data sort of formulated in a separate way by George, you know what I'm talking about, right? It was the document that was created for CB8.
Yeah,
in the past.
I don't think it was George,
So,
but yeah, there was someone that had pulled out a data set.
I think it may have been, but whatever it is, perhaps we look at that again and ask DOF to provide that information as a data set. Have them do the work.
Well, I think that was our request last year.
Was it to DOF or was it to HPD?
It was, I mean, whereas.
Because I think that information is DOF owned information.
So specifically, I mean, what we had asked last for was ask the New York City HPD and or New York City Department of Finance and or New York City Office of Technology and Innovation to allocate funds to develop a citywide data set going back to at least 2008 on the number of rent stabilized and rent controlled units by building, with building level data such as house number, street name, BBL bin, community districts, using data such as DOF tax bills.
And then the response was from HPD, right?
Response was HPD does not administer
Right.
this program. That's it.
So maybe we should refocus the request and specifically say how it's obtained, put that in the request and direct it to DOF. Because the knee jerk is to say, oh, we don't have that information.
Right.
But what we're asking for is them to create the data set based on other information.
But I feel that might put us at risk to squander another year waiting to hear from DOF. And I'd rather gather information proactively from HPD about how we would do it, how it would work.
We do both. We have to do both.
We can reach out to HPD and ask.
Yeah,
And not to DHCR. Is there a method? Have we ever done that before?
Right. Before we put it in,
Oh,
let's
for
make
the
a few
state?
phone calls.
For the state?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that we have we're a city. We're under the city, so I don't have like a direct way. Yeah, we don't have
Well,
a
I
direct way to
remember
ask
talking
for
to
it
the
from
head of
state.
the DHCR. In fact, I think he might have come to one of our meetings. Remember, Anita, years ago when we were talking about loft board stuff, I think.
Oh, maybe that's possible.
Very helpful.
I mean, we need to work through maybe our assemblymen.
What about adding DCP as well? Because they're in charge of, planning and thinking about these. These might as well.
Maybe we should hire someone to do the investigative reporting on how to get this.
We have a student right here from the
Good.
School of Journalism.
How do you like that?
A juicy topic for you.
We need to know, I mean, we don't do this every day and the agencies overlap. And it's a very reasonable request, I think, to protect our neighborhoods.
It is.
In
Um,
2015, we had the guy from DHCR come.
God, you're quick, Rika. That's 10 years ago almost.
I also work for HCR, but
Yeah.
not DHCR. So like I don't have access to any of that stuff. I work in homeownership, not rentals, but I can see if I can ask people.
Mhm.
Oh, great.
Please,
I
yeah.
don't know
Find
what I'm
out.
gonna Say, they probably have no idea, but maybe the people above them know or something.
DHCR is the old name and HCR is the new name.
So there's HCR and then underneath HCR, there's DHCR.
Oh, so the big.
See, you
The other
speak
way.
of the language. That's very good, because I wouldn't know how to go about that.
Yeah, so what does DHCR do?
They do the rent stabilized rent.
Ah.
And you're under homeowners and home buyers?
Probably a different website than that. But yeah. Because there's so many.
To keep it complicated.
Of course.
Would also another potential agency be the rent guidelines board, the New York City rent guidelines?
New York City, well, they just do the increases.
Okay.
Aren't they appointed by the mayor?
So I almost feel like the state is the one that has the database with the individual units and apartments and
They
everything.
probably own that information.
They issue the leases.
Right, but the only way that the city would be able to get some aspect of that would be at some higher level of aggregation, which would still give us the ability to track like per building or per zip code.
Or whatever unit they're using.
Right, how that's tracking.
It's tracked.
Yeah.
The data's out there. I mean, it's definitely out there. It's just the city keeps pushing back and, it's a state data set.
Well, do you think that you guys could make a few calls and, refine our asks or our agencies a little bit between now and our October discussion of
I
this?
think we should. I mean, otherwise we're going to just waste another year. They'll just come back and say, oh, that's just not our.
Yeah.
Then we're really nowhere, yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong either, and just spit out what it is
What's the
Want it.
reason we're asking, right?
it's not academic.
Secret, right?
I mean, we're not gonna read this at night just to fall asleep. We wanted to monitor. We want to monitor.
Dashboard, right? To be
Yeah.
able to go and see.
Yeah, maybe not that sophisticated. I might be asking a lot,
But these are good questions, and it's good for them to hear that we're thinking about these things. And then when it crosses their desks, they say, oh, yeah, they talked to us about that.
Mhm.
It's relationship building, that's good.
Okay. So this one we'll push. I mean, let's refine this one and make sure that we don't waste another year.
And it's been brought to our attention time and time again. Everything gets down to that.
Yeah.
We can do a lot of destruction
Right.
in the name of affordable
We're
housing.
flying blind on this data
Yeah.
point, right? It's just, we don't know. It's just anecdotal information.
Well-
What is that, thinking about the DHCR in relation to our conversation back in those days with the loft board. There, if you recall, a number of years ago, we had who was then the new director of the loft board come and talk. And and she seemed earnest, and she had her limitations with her database. But we haven't had them, they haven't been in our mirror at all. And I'm wondering whether there's something we want to ask the loft. At one point, we wanted the loft board to find the money to extract the data from from their database, their antiquated database. And it wasn't something they could do easily because it was, it was like asking them to go back and take it off their cassette tape kind of thing. You don't have the
Print out a dot
hardware to do it.
matrix.
So do we want to ask the loft board for any information? And under new business, is there any reason that we would want to invite the head of the loft board to come back and talk to us about what's going on and what she's been able to find since then?
So do we want to do a budget request for this loft board?
I'm asking, I don't know, but I think it might be under new business, a good idea to put them back on our radar for an agenda item for a future meeting.
But I would also assume that a lot of agencies they may not be going back and putting in all the old data, but at some point they're starting.
They have the data, it's that they couldn't extract it because they didn't have the software.
Yeah, I mean, again, for whatever reason, it's not, you can't always go into the archives, like building department, it starts, and then as it's needed, it gets loaded in, so.
Yeah, the law board's meeting on September 19th. Just check the Zoom. I mean, you just don't sort of hear about the law board anymore.
I
Well,
know.
they have they've become, Pete and I used to go to all their meetings, and then the meeting was supposed to start at 2:00, and they'd start at 2:15, and they'd have decided everything between 2 and.
I mean, their meeting minutes online we have nothing after 2021.
But they had like transcripts of all of their meetings.
Well, these are the minutes. That's
Right.
different. Yeah, they have, I see. Okay, sorry. May 16th.
It's what we want from them, not.
I mean, Chuck Delaney's still the public member.
Oh, really?
So it's been, Pete and I used to meet with him pretty often.
Does it have the head of it? She's, I forget her name, but I
Yeah,
recognize.
I'm looking for that. Chairperson Patino. Maybe there's something.
No, that's different than the executive director.
Yeah, let's see. Executive director.
They finally did
Rodriguez or-
hire someone, right?
What else is this sort of last?
Are there any other budget requests that you would like to propose?
Are we going to put a budget request about the law firm on the list then? Is that?
I don't know what it gives us.
It's just an
What do we,
updated
what would we
data.
ask for from, like, what is the data set we're asking for from the law? firm?
Very,
I mean, basically, we know they don't have this information.
it's a small, the bigger one is.
The rent
Okay.
stabilized, right?
Okay.
It's the only ones, I mean, for us, it's just the buildings that are still waiting on their
Martha Cruz.
CFOs, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
And that's all, by the way, the Department of Buildings is giving people a very easy route to
Mhm.
legalizing the Soho buildings, in my experience.
Okay.
Martha Cruz came in June of 22.
They're not being,
There's no big inspections.
No, just get it done.
just
At CFO.
make it through. Now, it depends on, maybe on the condition of the building. The buildings I work with are not so bad, but maybe there's no opportunity taken to bring everything up to code. That's my question.
You have to go with that.
Right. Well, if there are any other, we still have some time. So I think October is when this goes through exec and then, we determine what the priorities are there.
Maybe along the lines of like soft sites. I know at some of the previous buildings we've spoken about, what are the incentives in some areas when the zoning, like, it's more profitable or beneficial for developers to develop commercial versus residential?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Have we ever, like looked at that data in terms of like, what are those opportunities? Either for making like a zoning amendment or just identifying the lots that kind of fit that criteria or kind of history of those institutions being in that way?
We haven't asked for that type of, so you're like, you're asking like a type of study? No, we haven't. I mean,
Well, it was just voted with the rezoning of Soho. No, you can do whichever you want.
well, is there something we want to ask related to Hudson Square?
Amanda Burden did when Amanda Burden was head of DCP, there was a soft site inventory of what's essentially Hudson Square, but that's maybe 20 years ago, Amanda.
And that's
Very
gone, that has not gone residential, it's gone commercial.
Yeah.
So we're not very good at predicting anything, or the city is, let me say.
Which agency would that be? That would probably be what, DCP? I would imagine DCP is the closest agency that would look at that.
Yeah, I would say.
I don't know, that would be interesting.
What is the purpose of that? What would be the purpose?
To see if there's policy changes that could be done to encourage residential versus commercial.
Yeah, I'm like not familiar enough with the FAR requirements and how the different maps in our district are set up, but it sounded like, based on the conversation we're having during City of Yes, that there was some consideration of this being a possible avenue of, increasing FAR for residential relative to commercial. But the kind of pushback was like, well, this is a language, a text amendment, that's like a zoning amendment. And so it'd be good to have some data to come back with and say, hey, well, what is the opportunity for making that relative gap, smaller or even inverted, so that there's.
So to incentivize residential versus over commercial, for example.
So do you think that goes into the soft site?
I think it's adjacent. I think it's a slightly different definition.
Soft adjacent.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the council, vote on the City of Yes. That was before.
No, didn't we hear?
They just didn't they just have one of their public?
Because it's like when yes, we know what's gonna happen with that, it impacts all of this. It's like, then, if it doesn't go through, we're still with Soho rezoning. If it goes through, then we have all these new changes.
Right.
And the direction is to allow commercial in more spaces.
Exactly.
Not less.
Yeah.
That is the direction of the city. So it would be nice, but it would be unusual that we could fight it on this kind of scale.
On a budget request scale.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that if that goes through, it sets certain things as policy.
Right.
And,
They'll do it this year? It just seems like there might not be enough time.
Probably because,
Well, he
approval rating is
said
so low.
the youth groups have already changed, from new to old, it's maybe transitioning.
Yeah.
Do we have any new business?
I don't have any new business.
I guess the
Anyone
only
else?
new business that I would offer would be to think about the loft board and if there's any reason to have them come. I mean, if we don't have any more city ofs, then we have some time to kind of like think big.
I guess would have to say what we really want the
Well,
law board to tell us.
Yes, how are they doing? I mean, the woman took over a chaotic agency and what's she been up to?
So maybe you're
Right.
saying, come and give an
We
update.
did have a request from her, to her, when she came, which was to tell us the total number of units that had been processed at a time and what was the disposition of them. So that's something to follow.
And how they're protecting them.
Yeah.
I think protection
And what's
is a
keeping
big
them
part.
busy, and
But that
the
sort of goes
landlords.
hand in hand with the rent stabilized question, right?
Yeah.
Because
I think we have to speak up for what's existing to protect it and not just let it get destroyed in the process of.
I'll send an email to
Commercial.
Chuck Delaney, because Pete and I haven't met with him, suddenly it's like before COVID. Just to see,
I have to get my brain around the topic, but as I recall, the bottom line was that the loft board was supposed to dissolve when they had processed all of the units. So it was supposed to be, it was supposed to resolve itself by doing the work and going away. So how close to that are they at this point?
Well, yeah, and also, again, I think everything has gotten very easy, very encouraging to bring things
I
up to
think
date.
they've been actually kind of coming down on landlords harder than they used to. That was the trend that they were taking under Martha. When
But there's
Pete
still
and I.
now,
there's
not in
still all these
the,
IMD buildings that are not gonna, which came up under the Soho zoning. We would know that there are these buildings that
are kind of stuck.
are stuck.
Right, so let's hear it from them though. Be interesting to know. And what's been the effect of the zoning on their work?
hope everybody had a wonderful summer.
Yes.
Happy to be
It's all-
back.
I know. I had pneumonia.
You have pneumonia
You did? Oh,
For how long?
no. Are you better, all better?
No, I don't think 100%. No, We were going to Cape Cod, and my.
Are we closing off?
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. How do we close?
Vote for closing the meeting.
Peter drove me right to.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.